Welcome back to Hidden Shadows History, where we uncover the forgotten, the suppressed, and the mysterious truths buried deep in America's past, the kinds of stories that textbooks often skip and that experts still argue about even today. And before we begin unraveling 4 of the most unexplained history mysteries around the USA, make sure you like this video, share it with others who love history and mystery, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our deep dives into the hidden corners of the past, because what you're about to hear will leave you with more questions than answers, and I promise you'll be thinking about these mysteries long after this video ends. Now imagine this: the United States, the land of progress, freedom, and innovation, is also home to stories so strange, so baffling, and so resistant to explanation that they feel more like myth than reality, and yet they are real, rooted in events, locations, and evidence that historians still study. And in this story, we're going to explore 4 of the most puzzling historical enigmas in America, mysteries that refuse to be solved even in our age of advanced science and technology, stories that start out as history but end as legend, and yet remain frighteningly true. These 4 are the disappearance of the Lost Colony of Roanoke, the haunting curse of the town of Dudleytown in Connecticut, the baffling copper scroll and treasure maps that may link to hidden wealth in New Mexico, and finally the chilling mystery of the Antikythera-like mechanism rumored to have been found in Oklahoma that suggests ancient knowledge long before Columbus. Each of these mysteries is packed with unanswered questions, missing pieces, and chilling coincidences that make historians scratch their heads and skeptics nervous. So settle in, because we're about to step into the fog of forgotten America, starting with one of the oldest and most famous historical vanishings, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. The year was 1587, when a group of more than 100 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island, off the coast of present-day North Carolina, led by John White. These settlers were supposed to establish the first permanent English colony in the New World, a bold mission that carried both the promise of opportunity and the shadow of danger. White returned to England for supplies, but due to delays caused by war with Spain, he didn't return until 3 years later in 1590, and what he found shocked him and has haunted history ever since. The colony was gone, the houses were dismantled, the settlers had vanished, and the only clue left behind was a single word carved into a tree: Croton. To this day, no one knows what became of the men, women, and children who vanished. Did they integrate into local native tribes? Were they killed by hostile forces? Did they starve? Or did something even stranger happen? Countless theories have emerged, but the lack of evidence makes Roanoke one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in American history. Some researchers believe they merged with the Croatan tribe. Others argue disease or famine wiped them out. But the disappearance of an entire community without bones, without graves, and without more traces is almost impossible to accept. What really unsettles historians is that the Roanoke case isn't just about missing settlers. It's about a ghost colony that should have left more signs of life or death. Yet all that remains is that haunting word, a croton, whispered through time like a clue to a riddle we'll never solve. Skeptics claim the colonies simply moved inland and assimilated, but if that were the case, why have archaeologists failed to uncover clear evidence of their existence elsewhere? Every few years, new digs claim to find pieces of the puzzle, pottery shards, European tools in native settlements, but never enough to prove the fate of all 100-plus colonists. And this lack of closure is what makes Roanoke so fascinating and so terrifying, because history is supposed to leave footprints, but here the footprints vanish into nothing. Think about this. If a whole colony could disappear without a trace in 1587, what does that say about the fragility of human history? How many other stories have been erased? How many other mysteries remain hidden just beneath the soil? Now, as much as Roanoke chills the spine, it's not the only American mystery that leaves experts baffled. For our second story, we move to the eerie woods of Connecticut, where an abandoned town whispers of curses, madness, and misfortune. A place known to locals as Dudleytown, deep in the Litchfield Hills. Dudleytown was once a thriving little settlement founded in the mid-1700s. It was home to families who farmed the land, lived simple lives, and tried to carve out a future. But almost as soon as the town was built, disaster seemed to follow: strange deaths, mysterious illnesses, lightning strikes, suicides, and reports of ghostly apparitions plagued the residents. By the mid-1800s, people began abandoning the town, and by the early 1900s, Dudleytown was completely deserted, left to rot. Today, hikers and thrill-seekers who wander through the ruins often report hearing whispers, seeing shadowy figures, and feeling overwhelming dread. Some believe Dudleytown is cursed. Others say it's haunted by the restless spirits of its unfortunate settlers. Skeptics argue that disease, isolation, and superstition fueled the collapse. But believers point to the unusual concentration of tragedies. They say it can't just be coincidence. Legend has it that the Dudley family, who gave the town its name, carried a curse from England tied to treason and execution, and that curse followed them to America, dooming everyone around them. Though historians debate this, the sheer weight of eerie stories makes Dudleytown one of the strangest ghost towns in America. What makes it especially mysterious is that the land itself seems to resist habitation. Unlike other abandoned towns that were later repopulated, no one has successfully resettled Dudleytown. Attempts to build there end in failure. And to this day, access is restricted by private ownership, as though the land is guarding its own dark secrets. Those who trespass often describe unnatural silence, birds refusing to sing, a kind of dead air that presses down on you, as if the woods themselves remember the tragedies and keep them alive. Skeptics dismiss this as suggestion, but even scientists admit there are places in the world where magnetic anomalies or psychological effects can make people feel watched, disoriented, or afraid. Is Dudleytown one of these places? Or is it something else entirely? A place where history itself refuses to die. The deeper you dig, the stranger it gets. And just when you think you've escaped the darkness of Dudleytown, another mystery pulls you further in. This time not a disappearance or a curse, but a treasure map. One that has fueled endless speculation in the deserts of New Mexico. And that's where we'll go next. The mystery of Dudleytown fades into the mist of Connecticut's dark forests, but in the deserts of New Mexico, another puzzle emerges, one that shifts from curses and vanishings to the allure of unimaginable treasure and cryptic codes carved into ancient scrolls. This is the story of the Copper Scroll and the rumors of hidden wealth beneath the American Southwest, a story that ties archaeology, conspiracy, and treasure hunters into a single tangled knot. Now, when people think of the Copper Scroll, they often think of the Dead Sea Scrolls found in Qumran in the Middle East. But in America, whispers began in the mid-20th century that a copper plate bearing strange engravings was unearthed in New Mexico. Some claimed it was connected to early Spanish explorers who might have hidden away tons of gold and silver in secret vaults deep within the desert mountains. Others pushed the story further back, suggesting ancient civilizations, perhaps even pre-Columbian visitors, had recorded treasure maps in cryptic codes. The most enduring legend involves a copper tablet supposedly inscribed with strange symbols that match descriptions of a treasure inventory found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. This has led fringe theorists to argue that the Copper Scroll may have been part of a larger mystery stretching across oceans, somehow connecting the Holy Land to the New World. Skeptics say this is fantasy, pointing out that the supposed American Copper Scrolls have never been authenticated by credible archaeologists. But here's the twist. Multiple independent reports from locals, miners, and explorers going back to the 1800s describe strange caches of gold bars, hidden vaults, and engraved copper plates with markings no one could interpret. If these accounts are fabrications, why are they so consistent across time? And why do treasure hunters keep vanishing into the deserts in search of something that officially doesn't exist? In the 1930s, a man named F. Lee Bailey claimed to have found a coded map etched on copper near the San Pedro Mountains. But before he could release the details, he mysteriously disappeared, his notes scattered, his findings lost. The story was dismissed as rumor, yet similar tales emerged decades later, with other explorers swearing they too had stumbled upon copper maps hidden in the Southwest. Some connected this to the legendary Seven Cities of Gold. a myth that drove Spanish conquistadors on wild expeditions across New Mexico and Arizona. The legend said 7 cities, dripping with gold and precious jewels, lay hidden in the desert. When Francisco Vasquez de Coronado led an expedition in 1540, he found no golden cities, only pueblos, but the myth refused to die. It transformed, blending with rumors of copper scrolls that hinted at vast wealth still buried in the desert sands. Skeptics call it a mirage of greed, a story invented to lure fortune seekers, but there are enough strange coincidences to keep the legend alive. For instance, multiple copper mines in New Mexico show evidence of advanced techniques predating Spanish arrival. Who worked them and why, no one can fully explain. Some believe Native Americans mastered complex metallurgy. Others argue pre-Columbian visitors brought technology across the ocean. But no mainstream history accepts that. The Copper Scroll legend becomes more chilling when tied to modern disappearances. Treasure hunters vanish, expeditions fail, and search teams return empty-handed. Some even report being warned off by mysterious figures claiming to be government agents. Why would authorities care if the treasure hunt was just a myth, unless there's something hidden out there that they don't want the world to find? Stories of underground vaults, sealed chambers, and coded copper plates persist. Even though the official line is that there's no credible evidence, the desert keeps its secrets well, and the Copper Scroll remains one of the strangest unsolved mysteries of the American Southwest. Whether treasure map, religious artifact, or elaborate hoax, it continues to fuel both obsession and speculation, and yet as strange as the Copper Scroll may be, our final mystery takes us deeper into the heart of America, into Oklahoma, where whispers tell of an impossible discovery, something so advanced it shouldn't exist in the timeline of American history. An object some compare to the Antikythera mechanism, the ancient Greek device found in a shipwreck that stunned scientists with its mechanical sophistication. But what if such a device, or something eerily similar, was found not in Greece but in the middle of the United States? This is the rumor of the Oklahoma mechanism. In the 1960s, workers digging in the area around Oklahoma reportedly unearthed a strange object embedded in rock layers dating far older than European arrival. Some say it was a set of interlocking gears, fused into stone. Others claim it resembled a small astronomical calculator, like the Antikythera mechanism itself. Skeptics dismiss these reports as exaggeration or outright fabrication, yet similar out-of-place artifacts, known as OOParts, have been documented across the world, objects that seem to defy the timeline of human technology. If the Oklahoma mechanism were real, it would mean ancient peoples in North America possessed knowledge far beyond what history books claim. But here's where the story twists into conspiracy. Shortly after its discovery was reported, the object was allegedly seized, with officials citing misidentification and removing it for study. It was never seen again. Those who claim to have glimpsed it described it as bronze or copper, etched with markings that resembled astronomical alignments, and fitted with tiny gear teeth too precise for primitive tools. Mainstream scientists argue this is impossible, that no such mechanism could exist in pre-Columbian America. But if so, why were eyewitnesses silenced? Why were local newspapers pressured to retract their stories? And why do fragments of the tale keep resurfacing from people who swear their fathers or grandfathers saw the object with their own eyes? The possibility that ancient knowledge traveled to America long before Columbus has always been controversial. Some cite Viking runestones, others point to alleged Roman artifacts found in Ohio, but all remain disputed. The Oklahoma mechanism, if true, would be the most shocking of them all, suggesting either that a forgotten civilization thrived in North America with advanced science, or that ancient explorers crossed oceans with technology that history says didn't exist. Either explanation rewrites the past. Skeptics scoff, calling it a classic case of misidentified machinery, perhaps farm equipment or mining tools embedded in rock, but believers point out that geological dating showed the layers encasing the device were tens of thousands of years old, impossible for colonial or modern tools. So if not a hoax, what was it, and why has it vanished? Was it suppressed to protect the established narrative of history? Was it destroyed, or does it remain locked away in some museum basement, labeled as anomaly and hidden from public view? The the mystery remains unresolved. And like Roanoke, like Dudleytown, like the Copper Scroll, it forces us to ask a bigger question. How much of history is truly known? How much has been lost? And how much has been hidden? These 4 unexplained mysteries, scattered across America, are not just stories of the past. They are warnings that history is never complete, that what we know is only a fraction of what once was, and that the United States, for all its modernity, still sits atop secrets buried deep in its soil. Secrets that might change everything we think we know about our world. And before we close, remember, history is not a straight line. It is a web of mysteries, coincidences, and shadows. And sometimes the shadows are darker than the light. If you've stayed with me this far into the story, you're one of the rare few who dares to look into the fog of the past. Don't forget to like this video if you've enjoyed this deep dive. Share it with others who love unsolved mysteries. And subscribe to Hidden Shadows History for more journeys into the unknown, because the past is never really past, and the shadows are always closer than they appear. Stay curious, stay watchful, and remember, some mysteries are meant to be solved, but others are meant to keep us wondering forever. As we step deeper into these mysteries, you might be asking yourself why stories like these keep surfacing across America, why they persist despite historians labeling them myths, and why no matter how many times skeptics try to close the book on them, they always reopen with new details, new discoveries, and new whispers. The answer may be simple. History is not fixed. It is alive, breathing, shifting with each artifact we find and each story that refuses to be buried. The Lost Colony of Roanoke was not just a failure of settlement, but a glimpse into how fragile the written record is, how easily lives and stories vanish without explanation. Dudleytown was not just a town that died, but a reminder that places can carry memory and dread, as if the land itself absorbs human suffering. The Copper Scrolls and treasure maps in the Southwest are not just legends, but windows into greed, secrecy, and perhaps ancient connections we are not ready to admit. And the Oklahoma mechanism, whether real or not, is a threat to the very structure of accepted history, because if it existed, it proves knowledge was here before we thought it could be. So let us stretch these stories further. Let us ask not just what happened, but what they mean when placed together. Roanoke's disappearance, for instance, becomes more mysterious when compared with other mass vanishings in history. Think of the Mary Celeste, a ship found adrift with no crew, meals half-eaten, personal belongings untouched. Or think of the Anasazi people who abandoned massive cliff dwellings in the American Southwest centuries before Europeans arrived. Entire cities left empty, no clear reason, just silence. Is Roanoke one of these patterns? Are we seeing echoes of a phenomenon history cannot explain? With Dudleytown, the curse seems to echo the Salem witch trials, a community so wrapped in tragedy and superstition that its very memory becomes stained. And yet Dudleytown's silence today, the fact that nature itself seems to have reclaimed it with hostility, suggests something deeper. Some researchers even speculate about geomagnetic anomalies in the region, places where Earth's magnetic field warps human perception, making people hallucinate, feel dread, and even act irrationally. Could Dudleytown's curse be less supernatural and more scientific, a place where Earth itself bends reality? But if so, why did so many tragedies align so precisely with that one small settlement? As for the Copper Scroll, the allure of hidden treasure is timeless. Humans chase gold like moths to flame, but the consistency of reports about copper plates, secret vaults, and coded engravings suggests something more than greed. Perhaps a real cache of wealth hidden away by the Spanish, or perhaps even earlier, by civilizations whose traces were nearly erased. Some even whisper about connections between the Copper Scroll and the Knights Templar, who were said to have hidden treasures across the world. Wild perhaps, but history is full of wild connections that turned out to be true. And then the Oklahoma mechanism, the most terrifying of all, because it asks us whether our entire understanding of time and progress is flawed. If ancient peoples possessed mechanical calculators, astronomical devices, or even crude computers, what else did they know? What else have we lost? And why does the official story always seem to bury such finds as quickly as they appear? Skeptics dismiss out-of-place artifacts because they disrupt the neat timeline taught in schools, yet objects like the Baghdad Battery, the Iron Pillar of Delhi, and the Antikythera mechanism itself prove that human ingenuity often appears far earlier than expected. So why not in America? Why not in Oklahoma? Why is it impossible? Perhaps because if it were true, it means civilizations were traveling across oceans thousands of years ago, bringing science with them. And if that were accepted, it would unravel the narrative of discovery, colonization, and progress that the West clings to. Imagine if the story of America didn't begin with Columbus, but with unknown voyagers who left behind strange devices and vanished. Imagine if we are living on land that has forgotten more history than we will ever recover, and maybe that is the point. These four mysteries are not just separate events. They are part of a bigger truth, that history is incomplete, that what we know is but a shadow of what really happened. The Lost Colony shows us how easily people vanish. Dudleytown shows us how places can hold darkness. The Copper Scroll shows us how greed and secrecy bury treasure and knowledge. And the Oklahoma mechanism shows us that truth itself can be hidden if it does not fit the story. Together they form a pattern, a warning, that America's soil hides more than bones. It hides secrets that could shake our very idea of who we are. Think for a moment about the emotional pull of these stories. The colonists of Roanoke waiting for John White, who never returned in time. Their hopes crushed, their futures erased, their names forgotten except for a single carved word, Croton. Imagine the settlers of Dudleytown, building homes, raising children, only to be haunted by tragedy after tragedy until they abandon their lives to the silence of the forest. Imagine a desert explorer holding in his hand a copper tablet etched with codes he cannot read, convinced he has found the key to a treasure that could change his life, only to vanish without a trace himself. Imagine the workers in Oklahoma holding up a device that should not exist, gears turning, symbols glinting, before it is seized and hidden away forever. These are not just stories, they are human experiences filled with fear, hope, greed, and loss. They are echoes of real people whose lives touch the unknown, and that is why they endure, because deep down we know history is not safe. It is dangerous, fragile, and full of shadows. So the next time you hear someone dismiss an unexplained mystery as mere legend, remember this: legends only survive when there is truth at their core. Fairy tales die, but mysteries live on because they are not fully solved, because they still whisper from the past, daring us to listen, daring us to search. And if you're still with me here, you are the kind of person who understands that the past is not dead. It is not gone. It waits for us to uncover it piece by piece, even if some pieces will never fit the puzzle. Now, as we come to the final stretch of this journey through the shadows of American history, let us reflect on what these four mysteries really tell us about ourselves, because they are not just unsolved puzzles, they are mirrors showing us the limits of our knowledge and the dangers of assuming we have all the answers. The Lost Colony of Roanoke is more than a missing settlement. It is a lesson in how fragile new beginnings are, how even the bravest dreams can vanish without a trace, leaving only silence behind. Dudleytown is more than a cursed town. It is a warning that some places carry scars deeper than we can see, scars that turn into whispers and fears that echo through centuries. The Copper Scroll and its alleged hidden vaults are more than treasure legends. They are reminders of how greed and secrecy can bury truth and keep entire histories underground, waiting for the rare soul brave enough to search. And the Oklahoma mechanism, whether real or imagined, is more than a strange artifact. It is a challenge to the foundations of accepted history. It is a spark that dares us to consider that civilizations have risen and fallen many times before ours, leaving fragments behind that shatter the neat timelines we cling to. Together, these stories form a dark constellation across the American landscape, points of mystery that light up the night sky of our imagination, urging us to look closer, to dig deeper, and to question more. For every answer we think we have, there are 100 more questions waiting just beneath the surface. And that is what makes history powerful. It is not a finished book, it is an endless riddle, the kind that keeps us awake at night wondering what else lies out there forgotten, waiting for someone to notice. As you think about Roanoke, remember the families who carved out lives only to be swallowed by mystery. As you think about Dudleytown, remember the settlers who lived with tragedy until silence was all that remained. As you think about the Copper Scroll, Remember the men who searched the desert only to disappear into its endless sands. As you think about the Oklahoma mechanism, remember the possibility that history itself has been edited, leaving us with only the story we are allowed to know. When we put these mysteries together, we are left with a haunting truth that America is not just a land of opportunity and progress. It is a land layered with secrets, a land where the ground itself hides stories that do not fit the narrative we're shadows of. Forgotten worlds bleed into our present, and where the past is not dead but alive, whispering if we dare to listen. So the next time you walk through a forest or across a desert or stumble upon the ruins of an old town, stop for a moment and listen to the silence, listen to the whispers, because history is always speaking even when we do not understand the language. And now, dear viewer, if you've stayed with us this far into the hidden corners of America's past, you are the kind of person who does not accept easy answers. You are the kind of person who hungers for the truth even when it hides in shadows. And that is exactly why we created Hidden Shadows History, to tell the stories that others overlook, to ask the questions others avoid, and to shine a light into the dark places of history. So if you felt the chill of Roanoke's disappearance, if you felt the dread of Dudleytown's curse, if you felt the hunger of the Copper Scrolls promise, and if you felt the shock of the Oklahoma mechanism's implications, then you already know how powerful these mysteries are, and you know there are countless more waiting to be told. So I encourage you now to take the next step, support our journey by liking this video, sharing it with others who love history, and subscribing to the channel, because every like, every share, every subscriber helps us keep these stories alive, helps us keep searching, helps us keep questioning. The official story history belongs to those who dare to ask what if. History belongs to those who look into the shadows and refuse to look away. So join us here at Hidden Shadows History as we continue to uncover the lost, the hidden, and the forbidden, because the past is not finished, the past is alive, and it is waiting for you.